Okay, welcome to this week's GMBN Tech Show. I'm back, by the way.
Hi!
Did you miss me?
No, but well, yeah.
Breaks my heart. Anyway, what have we got coming up on the show?
Loads of old news.
I've got some gold retro stuff as well.
Yeah, and outside of landfill, we're talking about Hardtails, the demise or the rise.
Well, speaking of landfill, yeah. We've also got some kicking comments from you lot. That was random, isn't it?
Okay, so it's the week after the XCO World Cup in Alstadt.
What a race.
And and I noticed there was just a shed load of hardtails. Does anyone else notice this?
That was a mistake, wasn't
I
it?
feel like it's making a comeback. Is it making a comeback? Did it ever go?
I
feel like it went and full sussers were all the rage, and now everyone's like sneaking in, like, you know, the new Scalper Hardtail came out last year. Yeah. Cannondale sneaking in the pure XC race bike. And I saw loads of them at the weekend.
It's funny that nothing pure won, though, isn't it? when you paint it like that. All right, Hardtails are...
Wow, come on.
They're super light.
Yeah, so in terms of Scalpel, there was Mona came third in the race.
It's not a win, though, is
it?
And
Avancini, it's a podium.
Avancini didn't win either.
Fifth in the short course. But it was pretty fast.
Look, all I'm saying here, right? So Bart Brentjens, Olympian. Amazing rider, no doubt. But he was commentating, and he actually said, like, this course favours the climber. So you're a really strong climber, you can really, like Albstadt obviously, really pull away. And he was saying that it's actually favoured there to ride an XC Hardtail, but also because of the fact you've got to ride the same bike in the short course as you have in the XCO. But I thought it was quite interesting that in neither the XCO or the short course was it won by a Hardtail.
No, it wasn't.
No. And all the people that rode the full suspension bike absolutely killed it as well.
Yeah, spoiler alert, Tom Pidcock won it on his full sus.
He did indeed. And he rode his own race.
Yes.
He's back to doing what he does best, to be fair. And I actually thought Nino was going to do a little bit better, because when he started pulling a bit of a gap, he hit that downhill step down, and you could see the way he's riding, and that 120 bike, you're like, yeah, man, you're just going to nail this. But Pidcock just rode around him later on. I
know, the way he sort of doubled that little step down. Yeah, but I mean, like Bart said, it was a climber's course, and maybe that favours our Tour de France rider, Tom Pidcock. So
yeah, but also, I mean, he's no slouch on the descents either.
No.
And the bike he's riding, I think it's still the BMC, I'm pretty sure, underneath that. Underneath that Grenadier sort of paint job.
That black, not a brand.
And that bike's a pretty progressive cross-country race bike. So, but then also, if you look at the women's race, Rebecca McConnell, Australian rider, so she won the short course and she won on the XCO, and she's on a Mondraker full suspension bike. And tell me if I'm making this up, but I'm sure that racers, other than Pidcock, who's just a bit different, a lot of the winning and the gaps were actually made on descents on this race, which seems unusual to me, given what everyone's always said about this course. I'm sure that the tech in mountain bikes is helping people ride faster than ever.
Yeah.
State the obvious, really.
I mean, it's a funny one, isn't it? Because, I mean, getting back to the hardtail debate, it's, you know, the full sussers are incredibly light these days, incredibly light, just over, 1 to 2 kilos for a full sus frame with the shock is pretty amazing.
Crazy light, yeah.
I don't know if I ever thought that was going to happen. But then a hardtail is still half that. You know, you look at the Scalpel, it's like 1.8 kilograms, and then the hardtail is just under 900 grams.
Yeah,
I'm surprised that weight saving isn't making a difference. I'm a big fan of the
courses are getting gnarlier, though.
I gotta say. They are. I was surprised in Albstadt because it wasn't that gnarly. Most of the time you need it. Courses like Val de Sol, mental on the descents.
Yeah.
The one in Brazil where they're sending doubles. Yeah, of course you'd want.
But I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, case in point, full suspension won in all categories, basically. It won in the men's and women's in the XCO and in the short course. In the elite, I didn't actually watch the juniors racing. But of course, we know, this comes down to the rider as well. It's not just the bike, but for sure. Come on. See you later, Hardtails.
So, in the news today, we've got some new Race Face Effect pedals. So, they're a bit more of an update this year. We've got 25% more pedal for your feet to go onto. You've also got 10 adjustable traction pins there, so it means they're replaceable and customizable.
That's cool, yeah.
And they come in 6 anodized colours, which is
All of
what
the
we
colours.
all care about, really, isn't it?
It
What
is.
colour are they?
Do you know what? I like the 25% larger platform, actually.
Yeah.
I'd struggle with some pedals that are a little on the smaller side. I mean, I don't really run flat pedals that much, but if I do, I run the bigger of the Crank Brothers pedals. And actually, if I go to other brands now, I quite often find them too small.
I can see
really
that.
like 'em.
Well, your feet aren't exactly small.
They're not the biggest,
Are they?
to be fair, but yeah, I mean...
I think if I ran flat pedals, they'd have to be the size of my foot and then have something grabbing them
it's
as
got
well.
little hooves, quite small, aren't they?
Bring back the clips.
Next up in news, something a bit alternative actually, coming from Victoria. So they've got their factory, which I did the tour of out in Thailand, a Lion Tyres factory, but they've also got their HQ located just outside Milan in Italy. Now, they told me a couple of years ago that they were going to build like a development concept area with sort of testing grounds, something a little bit, I'd imagine, like Millbrook testing ground for cars. And their idea was to have like cobblestone areas to feel like the Paris-Roubaix and various different textured surfaces and that, so they could do some real-time testing as well as all the stuff with the machines. So in the Thailand factory, they had all the testing machines for quality control, but apparently they're going to move some of the testing side of things out to the Italian facility. And there's some shots on screen, just sort of proof of concept of where they're going with this. And I think it's a really interesting concept. So what they're saying is it's a 5-hectare tyre testing facility just outside the HQ with 4 kilometres of tracks, different road and gravel surfaces, a replica of the Strade Bianche gravel track, Paris-Roubaix, Tour of Flanders, cobblestones, all that sort of stuff. Essentially what they do in the car testing world. So I think it's a real interesting concept because you can't just rely on, I guess you'd say, subjective feedback from people, from testers out testing, because that's always down to the individual. You want to have hard facts from a laboratory. You want to have a repeatable test that you can do to see how things handle, and then sort of the real world testing. I think it's a real cool concept.
Real interesting.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea. I'm interested in where they're going to go with this.
Some brands pin all of their sort of product and marketing around one race, like Milan-San Remo, for example.
Yeah.
They want to win that, so having an in-house testing they can use all the time makes sense. Surprised me that they've got some free ride jumps in there as well, some mountain bike tracks.
Yeah.
And this is open to the public, did you say it was?
Yeah, no, I hadn't got that far actually, but yeah, you guessed what I was going to say. It sounds like they are going to be open to public as well, so it's going to have a bit of a bike park element. And it looks like it might be something like Velo Solutions or one of those cool companies that make sort of pump tracks and that, looking at the way the images are sort of being mocked up here. Next up, E13 got some new stuff. So they've got this lovely new stem, so it's a plus 35. Look at it on screen actually. So 0 rise, 0 gap faceplates, which, I don't know about you, I'm always a fan of that, because back in the day when you didn't have those, you'd always get someone over tightening one of the bolts and either snapping the bolts or rounding a head out or clamping your handlebars too much and even crimping them. So having the 0 gap, it's a no-brainer. You just tighten those two and then you just trim it up with the others.
And you always know where you stand with a 0 gap, don't you? You don't get it uneven. But also they've got like T25 hardware in there instead of like your standard hex.
Which is good
keys,
when people
which I
insist on
quite
putting
like
4mm bolts on stems and things, and a lot of people won't use Torx keys.
Yeah, and they've got this recessed like clearing as well, so you don't hit your knees.
Which is always nice. All right, let's talk about something completely superficial here.
Yeah.
SPD compatible Chelsea boots. Oh yes.
I didn't even know what this was.
So
I had to look this up.
I actually saw this on bikepacking.com, just doing a bit of random sort of gravel type research of adventure riding. I saw this brand, so a British company, I think you pronounce it Quok, or Quok maybe, I'm not quite sure.
I'd say so, Quok.
But yeah, I mean, so they come in black and they come in brown, all about the brown ones. So basically a Chelsea boot that you can ride your mountain bike and clip in, but they've got a sole that's really heavily orientated to off-the-bike performance as well. So I wouldn't suggest that these are for mountain biking off-road, but they'd be ideal if you're perhaps working in a bike trade, you're a mechanic, someone that rides to work basically, and you don't want to be wearing a traditional style SPD shoe as your work boot. I think these look awesome. I'm going to get hold of this set.
They're not bad. I like that little like reflective detailing on the back that's like super subtle.
I'd say it's just like a daily driver shoe, isn't it? For someone that doesn't wear a flat.
I can see you in them for sure.
Yeah, I love them.
DJ vibes and your big fur coat
Your
or
DJ
whatever.
vibe and a fur coat. Who do you think I am? Flipping, eh?
Yeah, so next up, I just want to give a little shout out to Patagonia, their little mini film about North Shore Betty. So go and search for it on YouTube. his little clip on Instagram at the moment. But basically, Betty started up riding when she was in her 50s, and now she is in her early 70s, still shredding North Shore in North Vancouver. And she has broken many bones in her body,
Oh God,
as
I can
you
imagine.
might expect just starting up. But also starting up over the age of 50.
Yeah,
and I just think
unreal.
it's super inspiring. And it goes into a bit more of a backstory about how she was one of the first women to hit the waves on a windsurfing board. So, yeah, she's no normal person, but just super great
That
to
sounds
see.
perfectly normal to me, to be honest. That sounds great.
Yeah, I guess so.
Do you know, just a little inside story with that as well is I looked into this after you mentioned it, and the producer or the director of this film is actually Darcy Turan. That was her pre-marriage name anyway. So Darcy, I know Darcy from way back. She was one of the first female freeriders when she used to ride for Norco bikes, and she's amazing on a bike and really cool and a very successful director. She made a film, I think it's called Moment Movie, and I think you can see it on Red Bull TV at the moment actually, and it's all about like the birth of the freeride movement from the North Shore. So she's super experienced in producing this stuff. So you've got to check that out as well actually. There'll be a link floating around down there. But yeah, it's really cool that she's still making like really cool motivational, inspirational stuff.
I've got to say, I like seeing these videos, not just because it's like a woman just sending in North Vancouver, but because it's, there is no age limit. Like she started at 50.
Yeah,
and we've got a couple of riders that are like mature.
Mature. There's the diplomatic word there. Old.
But in a kind of a free ride or like jumpy or like extreme kind of mountain bike style, there's not so many, and I just think it kind of reminds you that you can.
Absolutely.
It's not too late to start.
Well, some of them have been doing it for an eternity. Hans Ray, like probably my favourite rider of all time. I've said many times, I don't even know how Hans is, and I wouldn't want to offend him by trying to take a guess, but he's not exactly young now, and he's still ripping. Like, he's awesome.
Yeah.
And Pete Tompkins, the guy that invented the crud catcher, Pete's old and he rips still, and he rides his Harleys every day. Like, got suicide shift motorbikes and stuff as well. He's just like a gnarly old dude. I think he's on his surfboard every day as well. He lives in Robin Hood's Bay in Whitby. Pretty much every day they surf, he'll be out there.
Nice.
And I'm sure he'll be like the oldest guy surfing and probably the best guy surfing as well.
Yeah.
To be fair.
And I want to give a little shout out to a UK rider, Joey Goff actually, who rides for GT
She's
here
awesome.
in the UK, just come back from Audi 9s. She's in her early 40s, and I hope it's not an insult to you, Joey, I'm sure it's not, but I personally find it inspiring to see someone like who's just starting to learn massive jumps and going to complete the 50-to-1 line in Revolution
She's
for
a
the
sick
first
rider
time
as well,
in
so.
early 40s, and I'm like, I've still got some time.
Yeah, no, it's all good.
Still got some time
Well,
to
let's not
spend.
forget, there's probably the oldest mountain biker of them all, works with us.
Of course.
Jonesy on EMBN.
The granddad.
He calls us dinosaurs for riding non-e-bikes, but there's only one dinosaur in that set, I tell you.
I know, with his engine and his bus pass.
And his flat pedals, bless him.
All right, well, I think that's enough for the news, but another little thing is just go and check out our maintenance mistakes video, because me and Doddy, we did a funny. So
it was good
and
fun,
it was fun
actually.
fun to film, and hopefully you will enjoy it too.
Well, seeing as I've been away for a while, it's probably best you do comments, because it would have been about videos you've been making. So,
Well,
fire away.
let me bring you up to speed. So last week we were talking about Ali versus Carbon. Rich,
You? Rich,
me
you?
and Rich.
Cool.
Yeah, Rich was in.
I need to tune in. I tuned out totally for a couple of weeks. So.
Don't worry, you just kept your seat warm. It's fine. And we were basically talking about whether you would bother saving £1,000 and potentially gaining an extra kilo on a frame weight.
Yeah.
To go for a higher spec or equal spec Ali bike versus carbon bike.
Okay.
So a carbon bike of the same would cost you about £1,000 more, but it might be.
You're always going to get good
might be
arguments
about a
both
kilo
ways.
lighter, but which we go.
Yeah.
So we had a lot of people who were basically in the aluminium camp. Actually, would rather have aluminium. We've got Josh Niesel here who said, "I will never buy carbon. Never. I want a tough aluminium bike that just gets dings instead of cracks. Seems like guys on carbon are always so scared of rocks and scratches."
Good point, Josh, but don't think that you can't crack an alloy frame.
Yes.
So I used to have an Intense downhill bike. In fact, there's quite a few over the years, but my Intense Soakem, which was a lightweight downhill bike, I cracked it at Whistler, and that was from flying rocks hitting a down tube. That wasn't from like cracking a head tube or anything. So a lightweight alloy frame can crack just the same as a carbon one can. So
yeah,
be a lesson to you.
They do fatigue. I've got Incognito also. It says Anna on the ball here. Oh, thanks. The Stumpy Evo is available in Fox Factory alloy build with an excellent frame, top spec alloy. He's got a point here because I said I actually struggled to find high spec aluminium from a company that also did the same spec carbon as well. I mean, obviously we've got like Commensal out there who are only doing alloy and Privateer as well, but I wanted a direct comparison. There weren't many. Stump Jumper was a good call, and their carbon Pro is like $8,000. And their aluminium is like $4,000. Like it's almost half the price.
And the same spec.
Similar spec. So
good enough spec,
what I noticed is that the Stumpy aluminium version, they go with alloy finishing kit and alloy wheels and alloy frame. But you know, it's like Fox Factory suspension
Still
and
got
good
the good stuff where it counts,
GX Eagle. So yeah, you save yourself like $3+ grand. You buy another bike for that. Couldn't you?
Or you could go on a really good riding holiday with that.
Yeah, for sure. So we got Maximilian Shoots as well. Because of the configuration of propane bikes, you can compare top spec alloy bikes easily with top spec carbon bikes in regards to price and weight. Yeah, you good point. I missed out propane. I forgot about them guys doing some high spec alley bikes.
Yeah, I said this last time we mentioned them on news. They kind of annoyingly go under our radar too often, but they're really good bikes, aren't they?
They do carbon as well, but the starting point for alloy is just a bit lower. They don't do exact build differences with the different ones though. So again, they sort of annoyingly make you go for lower spec if you're going, like some companies almost penalise you with spec if you go in alloy.
Yeah, it's refreshing to see some brands choosing. I'm pretty sure YT have done some of their limited edition bikes in alloy recently and kind of made it a thing. Canyon obviously done their Spectral with the coil shock and the mullet setup.
Yep.
But they've done it in alternative ways, a little bit cheaper than some of the carbon ones, but they're kind of making it a bit of a unique bike. It's going to be thrashed a bit more, so kind of cool, but not quite the same thing.
Yeah, and thrashing is one of the things we talked about, was the fact that you could just sort of smash it about a bit, and obviously it's not infinitely not breakable. But yeah, I've got Mark Bell here saying that alloy is cheaper and more environmentally friendly. Interesting point. I think it's difficult to talk about environmentally friendliness in frames because I think what the impression is, you can recycle aluminium, sure, yeah, you can send that straight to recycling. You can also recycle carbon as well. You can't fix aluminium, but you can fix carbon, and I think people kind of forget that a bit.
Yeah, I think there's I agree, but I think there's a deeper video we need to make, but it's going to require some serious deep diving to find out a bit more about recyclability of things like carbon. So started learning a bit more about different ways people produce stuff, like how Ibis showed us how they do theirs, and you know, Atherton bikes obviously produce theirs in a completely different way, but they don't have any waste. And they're basically suggesting that your frame is a frame for life. So there are some alternative things going on.
Yeah,
but worth looking into.
It's not black and white, is it?
No, not anymore.
Both sustainability and recyclability.
I actually think it's a bit of an older argument.
Yeah.
And it's that black and white, but I do agree there are issues there that need to be tackled.
Well, maybe we'll debate it sometime soon.
Yeah.
So EMTB Wolf said, loving my Fox Factory SRAM GX spec alloy transition spire. I feel that the little bit of extra weight helps with the rougher bits on some trails. Yeah, good point. You know, being light on an enduro bike.
Light bikes get skittish.
So what?
Yeah.
It's a bit of a long one here, but Swen B said the whole discussion about 1 kilo difference in frame weight is nuts. For me personally, saving 1k on a frame is not worth the £1,300 price difference. For most weekend warriors, I don't think the frame weight is that significant. I would argue that they need to lose it on their midriff.
Hey, I completely agree with you, but some people will always want to save those grams. So you've got to kind of consider both types of people, haven't you?
I think it's easier to shove £1,000 on a counter than it is to lose a kilo.
So it's probably easier to put £1,000 behind a bar tab, isn't it, than it is to do anything else.
Sure, and then just one final one, just because I like this comment. Phil Dubs says, my favourite part of the week, GMBN Tech Show day. It's his favourite part of the week.
Oh, That's nice.
Thanks, Phil.
That is genuinely nice.
Thanks, Phil.
That's made me feel warm and fuzzy.
Okay, so Doddy's back, and as a little gift to him, so that he doesn't ever leave us again, I've got you some old tat. I've got some rewind for you.
Rewind. The cool old stuff, the nod to the past,
vintage,
the bleary-eyed
the
stuff.
Beautiful, yes.
Yeah, all right.
What do you think to my selections?
Well, all right, the first one, you're starting off in a winner. So this is from Rudy in Germany. So this is an Ibis Mojo from 1994. So obviously Ibis Mojo these days is a full suspension bike. It's a really fast, really nice looking full suspension bike. This is radically different. So steel frame. It's a beautiful looking bike.
Now, I wanted an Ibis Mojo back when I started in about 2004, so 10 years later, and it looks nothing like that.
Well,
I remember it's that figure of 8 kind of...
They were the first people to really bring like that shapely sort of carbon looking.
Like
Obviously it's still a divider,
but
undoubtedly that sort of changed the way people thought about carbon bikes.
But this is the original.
Oh, it's beautiful. XTR. Oh, it's so nice. Synchros post, flight, Italia saddle. Absolute classic.
What about them tyre boots, those suspension boots? Are you upset about them?
No, they were there back then in the era, and we all know that they weren't particularly good. And if you got dirt on the inside of them, it'd actually hold it there and make it worse.
Yeah.
But some people loved them.
They served a purpose.
Hey, it's a talking point if nothing else, but it's also got Mavic SUP ceramic rims on there. So the two cool things going on there. So firstly, the Mavic rims in that era were the best rims. They were the best produced, the best quality rim. Right, so what they used to do is they pin the rim together, then they would weld it, and then they'd machine the weld. So it's a perfectly straight, perfectly seamless rim. So bearing in mind you used to use rim brakes, which sounds crazy for mountain bikes now, but if you could feel like a cheap rim, you'd feel the gap in the rim, or you'd feel the inconsistency where there'd be a little warp or anything. They were absolutely perfect. And then just to make them even better, they put a ceramic coating which was really grippy and wear resistant on the sidewalls as well. So those rims were so good back then. They're modern tyres on there though, they're not originals, but I guess that's just to keep the bike rolling. But hey, lovely example of a bike, that's cool. And what else we got?
We've got a 1999 Marin Rock Spring. Look, it doesn't look that outdated, I've got to say. For pre-2000, I don't think I would notice that in the trail. But this, Dave is still sending this at Llandegla One Planet.
There were strong old bikes, those.
UK.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what that shock is. That's an ancient old Fox on there. Can't quite see what model that is. Maybe an Alps, not quite sure. But yeah, I mean, classic single pivot design. A lot of bikes still use single pivots. Orange bikes still use single pivots. There's nothing wrong with them. They work well, provided you've got your shock tune on there decent. Yeah, and actually you do see a lot of those around. In fact, I did in lockdown, I fixed up a bike that Blake had bought, which was one of those. In fact, it was a Shoreline Trail, I think, but same suspension platform on that. And I fixed it up with a load of stuff for as little money as possible, and we chipped it in. But yeah, it says a lot that it's still going.
I like it. I enjoy riding single pivots and low standover clearance there for me. No dropper though. He's kicking it old school. Respect that.
Yeah, he's got his saddle down though in one of those shots, so he knows what's going on. Hey, it's cool. That's not a bad little selection.
Well, thanks.
That was a nice try.
Hope you like it.
I appreciate it. Don't forget to get your rewind entries in, by the way. There's a link right here. If you've got some old tat, or preferably some old gold you want to send in, please do get involved. And the same goes with other sections of the show, Bike Cave and, of course, Top Mods. We want to see what you're doing to your bikes, the little customisations you made. In fact, here's a good example of customisation. It's a complete bodge in my case, but if you look at the bottle cage on there, I have a problem getting a full-size bottle in my bike. And in particular, bottle cage I had was basically mounting it with the top of the bottle was too close to the shock. So I just drilled it out and put a couple of spacers underneath, which looks unsightly, but it was super rushed at the last minute before a ride. But it did mean I can get a full-size bottle in there. Wow. So there you go. That's an example of a little top mod.
Wolf tooth B-Rad rails, where you can like...
I didn't have one at hand when I wanted to go for a quick ride. So I quickly did that. And that's a good example.
Top mod. Well done.
There we go. But get yours in. Get your better ones in. And keep her quiet while you're at it. You've probably noticed that we haven't done the quiz this week, but because I've been away, we've done nothing but chinwag, and we've run out for a long lunch basically today and had pizza. So there's no quiz this week, but we'll treat you with a better quiz next week. Maybe we'll put a few extra questions in and some more content. But we love you watching our show, so please do get involved with the Top Mods, the Bike Cave and the Rewind stuff. You help make our show great. So get involved, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.
See you later.